There's been some interesting NFL draft classes over the years, but it might be hard to find one more interesting than the class of 2012. And now that we're 10 years removed from that draft class, journey with me back to NFL Draft Night 2012.
Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like...
The Indianapolis Colts had the first pick in the draft. If you turn the clock back by a year, Peyton Manning had started 208 straight games for the franchise, but was now dealing with a neck injury, would miss the entire 2011 season, and, as it turns out, would never play for the Colts again. The results of that 2011 season were disastrous, as you might expect, and the Colts were immediately losing 34-0 to Houston in the season opener. That score pretty much set the tone of the season, and the Colts went 2-14 to secure the first pick in the draft.
The Indianapolis Colts select Andrew Luck, quarterback, Stanford.
Andrew Luck was the no-brainer pick. He had a historic college career at Stanford and nearly won the Heisman Trophy twice. He probably would have been the first pick of the 2011 draft, which is pretty crazy considering how stacked that draft class was. Luck immediately found success in the NFL. He guided the Colts to an 11-5 record in 2012 and broke the record for most passing yards by a rookie, which was held by Cam Newton, the 2011 first pick. The Colts got bounced in the first round by Baltimore, but Luck brought them back to the postseason with another 11-5 season in 2013. He claimed his first playoff win in one of the most impressive comeback victories of all time over the Kansas City Chiefs before eventually falling to the New England Patriots. It was a similar story in 2014 with the Patriots crushing the Colts 45-7 in the AFC Championship game. Despite that loss though, there's no doubt that Andrew Luck was quickly becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league and had the most passing touchdowns in the NFL that season. But that's as close as Andrew Luck ever got to the Super Bowl. For having the most potential of any quarterback in recent memory, the Colts failed to protect him. In 2015, Luck missed several weeks after this hit that resulted in a lacerated kidney and a torn abdominal muscle. The Colts missed the playoffs. 2016 was a great year for Luck statistically after becoming the highest paid player in the league, but his team went 8-8 for the second straight year and missed the playoffs again. The real news of that season though was Luck's shoulder. He had surgery in the offseason and missed the entire 2017 season. Luck took the field in 2018, his first game in 616 days. If there was any question about Luck's shoulder, it was somewhat answered considering he threw 121 passes in weeks 4 and 5 alone. He earned the Comeback Player of the Year award after his best statistical season yet, and he went to his 4th Pro Bowl after falling to the Chiefs in the playoffs in overtime. It seemed like things were maybe turning around for Luck, who finished a complete season for the first time since 2014. But then, on August 24th, 2019, Luck shocked the world.
But I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life.
Luck was just 29 years old, and to this day has never stepped back onto the football field. The story of Andrew Luck is one of the greatest what-if stories in all of sports. What if the Colts had protected him better? Would Luck have been able to overcome postseason struggles and win a Super Bowl? We'll never know. Since his retirement, the Colts have had 3 different starters on opening week, and with Matt Ryan now taking the reins in Indianapolis, that's going to happen again in 2022.
The Washington Redskins select Robert Griffin III, quarterback, Baylor.
Robert Griffin was, and still is, one of the most electric college players to ever play. A Heisman Trophy winner, Griffin stepped into the starting role for Washington on day 1 and put together a great game against the Saints on week 1 and was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week in his very first NFL game. His dual threat ability made him extremely dangerous, and he threw for 3,200 yards and rushed for 815 more. He recorded 27 total touchdowns and just 5 interceptions in his Rookie of the Year campaign. Griffin led Washington to the playoffs with a 7-game win streak, but suffered substantial knee injuries toward the end of the season and saw his team fall short in a postseason loss to the Seahawks. Griffin suffered a sophomore slump and was essentially benched for the last 3 games of the 2014 season. It's not crazy to think that Griffin simply wasn't the same player after the knee injuries he suffered his rookie season. And expectations for a healthy Griffin in 2015 quickly fell flat after a concussion in Week 2. Kirk Cousins came into the game, and Griffin had played his last snap for Washington. Let's just say things did not end well for Griffin in Washington, and he's actually got a book coming out in August detailing the ongoing sexual harassment investigation into the team now known as the Washington Commanders. Griffin signed with the Cleveland Browns in 2016 and was named the starter, which honestly could be considered a curse in itself. No offense, Browns fans. In the very first game of the season, Griffin suffered a shoulder injury and played just 6 games that year. Griffin became the Ravens' backup quarterback until he was eventually waived by the team following the 2020 season. Now, Robert Griffin is a college football color analyst for ESPN and does a really good job. He actually has a master's degree in communication and seems like he's a great fit in the broadcast booth, although he apparently hasn't ruled out the possibility of returning to the field someday.
The Cleveland Browns select Trent Richardson, running back, Alabama.
Cleveland has not had a great success rate in the draft, and Trent Richardson was certainly no exception. The Browns actually traded up to get him, giving the Minnesota Vikings a 4th, 5th, and 7th round pick. The top 3 finalists for the Heisman Trophy in 2011 were Robert Griffin III, Andrew Luck, and Trent Richardson, who were now drafted in the top 3. Richardson came from Alabama, where he gained 1,740 yards and 21 touchdowns en route to his 2nd championship with the Crimson Tide. Expectations were high for Richardson, who became the highest drafted running back since Reggie Bush. But he never found his footing. Richardson seemed to lack vision at times and had just 3.6 yards per carry in 2012, which was the lowest among all rookie running backs that year. The Browns dealt Richardson to the Colts for a first-rounder just 2 weeks into the 2013 season, as Indianapolis was looking to surround their budding star, Andrew Luck, with weapons. And I'm sure the Browns put that first-round pick to good use, right? I'm so sorry, Browns fans. Richardson never caught on during his time with Indianapolis and was waived after the 2014 season. He briefly signed with Oakland and Baltimore, but was cut from both teams without seeing any playing time. And as it turns out, Richardson also had to deal with a lot off the field, including his own family spending over $1 million of his money. But that was the end of Richardson's NFL playing career, making him one of the biggest busts in NFL history.
The Minnesota Vikings select Matt Kalil, tackle, USC.
Kalil had an up-and-down career. He made the Pro Bowl in his first year in the league with Minnesota, but he struggled from that point, allowing too many sacks, and Vikings fans were quick to jump on him on social media. He missed most of the 2016 season, and after 4 years with the Vikings, Matt signed with the Carolina Panthers to play on the same line as his brother Ryan. He started all 16 games of the 2017 season at left tackle, but unfortunately, that's where his playing career ends. A knee injury placed him on the IR for the entire 2018 season, and he was released in the offseason. He tried one last run at making a roster with the Texans in 2019, but was unsuccessful.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Justin Blackmon, wide receiver, Oklahoma State.
Blackmon's story is rather sad. He had a great career with the Oklahoma State Cowboys in college and the air raid offense, and was even drawing comparisons to Terrell Owens on draft day. But unfortunately, multiple DUIs derailed both Blackmon's NFL career and personal life, and he played just 18 games in 2 seasons for the Jaguars.
The Dallas Cowboys select Morris Claiborne, defensive back, LSU.
Jerry Jones was high on Morris Claiborne throughout the pre-draft process. The Cowboys came into the draft with the 14th pick, but gave their 2nd round pick to St. Louis to jump all the way to number 6. Claiborne never quite lived up to the billing of a top 6 draft pick, mostly due to all of the different injuries he sustained. In his 3rd year with the Cowboys, Claiborne was benched, which apparently didn't sit well. He reportedly stormed out of a Cowboys practice facility one day, but did eventually return and stayed with the team through 2016. As a free agent in 2017, Claiborne signed with the New York Jets, who were desperate for secondary help now that Darrelle Revis was no longer with the team. His best season was actually in 2018, where he had a career-high 57 tackles, 14 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions. In 2019, he signed with the Chiefs and won a Super Bowl, although he was not active for that game.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Mark Barron, defensive back, Alabama.
Barron was drafted by Tampa Bay as a strong safety, but bulked up a bit and played linebacker when he was traded to St. Louis in 2014. Barron had a pretty solid career and had over 115 tackles in both 2015 and 2016. He made an appearance in the Super Bowl with the Rams in 2018, where he had 8 tackles, and rounded out his playing career in 2019 with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Miami Dolphins select Ryan Tannehill, quarterback, Texas A&M.
We've come to the first player on this list to still be in the NFL. Of course, the most recent Ryan Tannehill memory is a not-so-great performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, but Tannehill has had a very successful NFL career. And he had a lot to live up to. He was the first Miami Dolphin quarterback taken in the first round since Dan Marino. It wasn't all smooth sailing for Tannehill in his 2012 rookie year, but he did set the franchise rookie record for yards, attempts, and completions. In his first 4 years with the team, he had 3,000 yards passing in every year and became just the 4th quarterback to accomplish that feat. And although he had 4,208 passing yards in 2015, the Dolphins had yet to make the playoffs with Tannehill as their starter. 2016 seemed to be the season to break that playoff drought. The Dolphins had won 9 of 11 and were headed to the postseason, but Tannehill went down with injury in Week 13 and had to watch from the sidelines as his team fell to the Steelers in the playoffs. Tannehill didn't even get to the regular season in 2017 before suffering an ACL tear. In 2018, Tannehill returned but was never truly healthy and had the worst season of his career. It was easy to write off Tannehill at this point. He'd been traded to Tennessee to presumably play backup to Marcus Mariota. Except things didn't quite play out that way. Mariota was benched in Week 6 and Tannehill took over. He was named the starter in Week 8 and threw for 312 passing yards in a victory, and he never looked back. He was named the Comeback Player of the Year and even toppled Tom Brady in the playoffs, of course, with help from some guy named Derrick Henry. Eventually, the champion Chiefs knocked the Titans out of the postseason. But that run was good enough to net Tannehill a 4-year, $118 million contract. He had his best statistical season in 2020, but like the 2021 season, couldn't put things together when it mattered most in the postseason. And that takes us to now, where there are certainly questions if Tannehill can get this team into a Super Bowl. Time will tell, but for now, I'd argue the Titans ended up with the second best quarterback of the draft.
The Carolina Panthers select Luke Kuechly, linebacker, Boston College.
Luke Kuechly was one of the most dominant forces on defense during the 2010s. Kuechly was the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2012 and then the Defensive Player of the Year in 2013. He was named to the Pro Bowl in 7 of his 9 years and of course made a Super Bowl appearance with Carolina in 2015. His mind-boggling numbers in college with the Boston College Eagles translated seamlessly to the NFL, where he had a franchise record 205 tackles in his rookie season for Carolina. There's so much more that I could say about Luke Kuechly. I mean, this guy was routinely ranked in the top 20 of all NFL players for several years. Kuechly missed 7 games in his career due to concussions and ultimately and suddenly retired at the age of 29 due to those concussion concerns. In just 8 seasons, he totaled over 1,000 tackles and 18 interceptions, and if not for those concussions, could have become one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
The Buffalo Bills select Stephon Gilmore, defensive back, South Carolina.
Stephon Gilmore is another player who has had a great NFL career. The Buffalo Bills took him 10th, and he put together a pretty solid rookie year. And honestly, I think that's how I would pretty much describe his career in Buffalo. Solid. Nothing earth-shattering, which makes sense since none of his Bills teams ever reached the playoffs. But he did have 5 interceptions in his last year with the team in 2016 before signing with the New England Patriots, which was good enough for his first Pro Bowl appearance. But it was in New England that Gilmore became a force. 2018 was a monster year for Gilmore, who was the highest graded cornerback and helped seal the Super Bowl victory for the Patriots. 2019 was even better. Gilmore had made a name for himself as a shutdown corner and was eventually named the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. However, in 2020, he was hampered by injuries and COVID and clearly wasn't the same player that fans had just seen in 2019. That quad injury from 2020 seemed to linger over into 2021, and eventually the Patriots dealt him to the Carolina Panthers, where he played in 8 games. He signed with the Colts this offseason as a free agent, and Indianapolis fans are hopeful that they'll get closer to the 2019 version of Stephon Gilmore. So that's the top 10 of the 2012 draft, but there's a few more players that we're missing, and we should talk about them. That's right, every single team passed on Russell Wilson at least twice, who was drafted with the 75th pick. And it's probably because teams were thinking this.
Wait a minute. Nobody under 6 feet is starting in the NFL right now.
6'4" are in this draft. There's not a lot of quarterbacks.
In the NFL, John, over the years, a lot of quarterbacks come along.
Here's the one
test case.
Knowing what we know now, there's a good chance Russell Wilson would be the first overall pick, although I honestly think Luke Kuechly would be a strong argument too. But how about some of the quarterbacks that were taken before Russ? Brandon Weeden and Brock Osweiler were both selected, and neither one worked out well. Of course, the Osweiler pick specifically is now very interesting considering all that Denver had to give up to trade for Russell Wilson. Just 13 picks later, another Super Bowl quarterback was drafted in Nick Foles. Kirk Cousins was drafted in the 4th round with pick 102, and while I personally think Kirk Cousins is a bit overrated, that's certainly a steal in the 4th round. It's also crazy to me that Washington drafted 2 quarterbacks in the 2012 draft, and ironically, it was the 4th round quarterback that eventually won the job over the 2nd pick in the draft. So that wraps up the 2012 NFL draft. How did your team do 10 years ago? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure there's also stories from this draft, players, whatever, that I missed because there's just not enough time to really get one draft into one video. So if I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. I'll be hanging out there, replying to all of your comments. So yeah, do that. I'd love to see you there. All right, before I go, you might check out this video here. This is a video we did on this year's NFL draft, the 2022 NFL draft, and we might have made Chicago Bears fans angry with our draft grade that we gave Chicago. Whoops. So anyways, there's that video. I'm out. I'll see you guys later.